friends, in today's class let's learn about the major landforms that are found on the earth. What are landforms? So landforms are nothing than the different features that are found in the earth's crust. So these different features are of different sizes, shapes. So according to this classification, they are of different types. They are mountains, then plateaus and plains. Okay, now let's first introduce, so I introduced it. Now let's learn about the mountains. So the mountains are huge masses of land that are higher than the surrounded area. Okay, so these mountains used to be more higher than the surrounding areas. So the mountains are found on the surface of the earth and also under the sea. So these mountains are actually formed when two tectonic plates crash together. So the mountains are also of two types, but before learning them, how they are classified into these three types. So on their basis of origin, like if they are formed by faults, they are known as fault mountains. So like this, how they formed, the origin, like in that position, they are of three types. They are fold mountains, block mountains and volcanic mountains. Okay friends, now let's learn about fold mountains. So these fold mountains are also of two types. But please, I'm not going to confuse you, I'm just telling you. Mountains are of three types. Fold mountains, block mountains and volcanic mountains. This fold mountain is of two types. They are young fold mountains and old fold mountains. So in the word itself, you can find the meaning. Am I right? So young fold mountains are very young, old fold mountains are very old. But that's not the accurate thing. I have explained it for you. How a fold mountain is formed? Okay, they are not formed by anything than the collision between the tectonic plates deep beneath the Earth's surface. So when they collide, so these fold mountains are formed. So fold mountains are found in many places in the world. So most of the mountains in the world are actually fold mountains, and the main examples of fold mountains are the Himalayas. So the Himalayas also an example of fold mountains. And do you know that the movement of the fold mountains are horizontal? And what do they create? What's the byproduct? So it's nothing than they make many parallel ranges and ridges. Okay. So this is because of the movement, the fold mountains actually form many ranges and ridges. So there are also many. What can I tell you? There are also many examples of fold mountains. But before learning that, first let us learn about characteristics of not fold mountains, of young fold mountains. Okay. So the young fold mountains, they have a very large thickness of continental soil. What is continental soil? Like minerals like granite, gneiss and sedimentary rocks. Sedimentary rocks are nothing than rocks that are formed by sediments. So these sedimentary rocks are also actually these are the things that come in the category of the continental soil. Can I tell you a fact? Do you know the Alps mountain, if I tell you, you will be shocked, has a soil thickness of about 10 km. It has the thickness of about 10 km. Of course. So this is the main characteristics of the young fold mountains. Another characteristic of young fold mountains is they have very sharp pointed peaks. So these peaks are nothing than the edges of these mountains. So the base of a mountain is always flat. The base of a mountain do not used to be very pointed. It is always flat, and some mountains also plants on their sides. So these young fold mountains, they actually have sharp pointed peaks. So some of the young fold mountains are formed in the western margins of North and South America. They are also found in the region between the southern Europe and northern India. Some of the examples of young fold mountains are the Himalayas of India, Alps of South America and the Southern Europe, Rockies and the Great Dividing Range. Now let's know about the characteristics of old fold mountains. So now we learned about young fold mountains. So the young fold mountains, the old fold mountains are just opposite to the young fold mountain. What do you mean? The old fold mountains have rounded peaks instead of having sharp peaks. They have rounded peaks. Why? Why? That's because they are formed by erosion. So when the wind, sunlight, all these things erode the young fold mountain, old fold mountains are formed. That's why they have the rounded peaks. So this is the main characteristics of old fold mountains, and some of the examples of old fold mountains are actually the Vosges, Vindhyas, and Aravallis and Appalachians. So all these mountains are the examples of the old fold mountains. So now we learn about fold mountains. Okay? And now one other fact I have. Do you know that the world's highest unclimbed mountain is the 24,981 feet Gangapyeonggam in Bhutan. That's the world's 40th highest mountain. Okay. Now we learned about the fold mountains. Now block mountain. In the last class I explained to you about the block mountain. So the same thing I'm gonna explain in this class too. Okay. So these block mountains are actually formed by parallel faulting or cracks on the Earth's surface. But this fact I didn't tell you there before class, but now I'm gonna tell you. So when these block mountains are formed, these parallel faults again in the Earth's core, they do not cause faults. They just break into separate blocks. So these blocks may be either uplifted or they may be downwards. So this uplifted block is actually, they are known as block mountains or host. Before class I told you it's host. And the downward block is known as graben. Okay. So this is the main characteristics of block mountains. And block mountains are actually formed here Black Forest, Vosges and Vindhyas. Okay, now let's learn about the characteristics of block mountains. So block mountains are actually found in areas which once had a mountain relief. The block mountains are characterized with the massiveness and their smooth surface topography. Topography is nothing than the surface. So some mountains may have a very rough surface, some will have a very smooth surface, some will have a very sharp surface. So all these things are known as topography. So now we learn about the block mountains too. So now we can learn about volcanic mountains. So this also in the name itself you can find. Volcanic mountains are formed by volcanoes. Yeah, they are actually formed by volcanic eruptions. But do you know the volcanic mountains are actually formed when lava comes out through the small cracks in the Earth's crust and they accumulate around the volcanic vent, causing cone-shaped volcanic mountains. Okay, now I'm going to tell you some examples of volcanic mountains. They are actually Mount Kilimanjaro in Indonesia. Sorry, I forgot. Okay, then Mount Fuji in Japan, Mount Vesuvius in Italy, and so these are some of the volcanic mountains that are found in the world. So the characteristics of volcanic mountains are not like the characteristics of fold and block mountains. So the volcanic mountains have total 5 stages. So these 5 stages can be commonly known as the characteristics. They are eruption, explosion, and then the expansion, emulsification, craters. So eruption. So when the volcanic mountains erupts, it pushes out all the rocks and molten magma that causes extreme heat which nobody can bear it. Next is explosion. So when a volcanic mountain explodes, it pushes out all the molten magma, rock and red hot lava. So next we are going to learn about emulsification. So when all these lava, they combine with all the gases that's in the atmosphere, they form an aqueous fluid that has a high percent of oil. So this oil is found in the below the Earth's crust and it's then later drilled, filtered volcanic eruptions, and also the impact of a meteoroid. Meteoroid are nothing that's huge chunks of stone that usually shoot in the space, and sometimes they may fall on different planets. So when they fall in the different planets, they form depressions. They are known as craters. So we learn about the stages of the volcanic mountains. So we learn about the different types of mountains, that are fold mountains, block mountains, and volcanic mountains. Now come on, let's learn about the importance of mountains. So these mountains actually they act as a natural boundary between different countries. Just an example is Himalaya. It acts as a natural boundary between India and China. So most rivers are originating from the mountains. So these rivers, they're used for irrigation. Irrigation means agriculture, okay? Agriculture, then electrical projects, like they take hydroelectricity from the water. So the renewable energy of these rivers actually increase the economic activities usually in rural areas. And these mountains, they actually help many, sports activities. For example, trekking, climbing, and paragliding. Paragliding is nothing than flying the parachutes. And skiing. Skiing is very popular. They have two sticks and they usually race in the ice. So that's skiing. And water rafting. It's also very common. So they just play in the rivers. It's a type of sport, water sport. So these are the games which they play because of the mountains. So the mountains also influence the global and economic, the temperature, climate, all these conditions. For example, of Himalaya, it prevents all the cold winds that come from Asia that cause heavy rains in the northern India. So all these are some importance of mountains, but mountain also help. They have many partial lands, right? Many woodlands, grasslands, and they have forests that give us timber, and many animals are living there. So in these partial lands, they are nothing than they are like grasslands where the sheep and cattle graze. Okay? So now we learned about the importance of mountains. So now we learned about the main landform, that's the mountain. Now valleys. Okay? Okay, now valleys. I think so you know about valleys. Now I'll explain clearly for you. So valleys are nothing than small areas of land between two mountains or hills having a river or stream that is flowing through. So that's called a valley. And these are the most common landform that is found on the earth. So these valleys are also, then there are also many types of valleys. So now we are going to learn about the formation of Rift Valley. So Rift Valley is formed when two tectonic plates collide with each other. And they separate or split against each other. So when that process happens, Rift Valleys are formed. So now let's learn about the characteristics of Rift Valleys. Rift Valleys are actually, they form many ridges. And these ridges are actually found under the sea, and these rift valleys also many rift valleys found in these continents are very irregular and they are very sparse. So some of the rift valleys also they have very fertile soil in the bottom, and they act as very excellent farmlands. So these are the main characteristics of rift valleys. So these rift valleys most of the valleys, they have a river flowing through it, okay? And we learned about the characteristics and the formation of rift valleys. Now, before we learn about the forces, I have a question for you. Can you tell me an example of rift valley? Okay. There are many examples of rift valleys, but before learning that, first let me explain the forces, okay? So the forces. So what are the forces? What forces? Pressure, stress, tension, compressibility. That forces? What force? Can I explain it for you? Okay. So these forces are nothing than some geological. Their pressure and the process that shape up the earth. So these forces may be either they may happen under the deep beneath the earth's surface or external forces. So according to their external forces or internal forces, they are classified into two categories. They are endogenous forces and exogenous forces. What is endogenous forces? They are nothing than the forces that happen deep beneath the earth's surface. They are the forces that are responsible for the formation of many landforms that are mainly mountains, plateaus and rift valleys. So this is the correct explanation of and the things that get formed because of these endogenous forces. And these endogenous forces, they create many earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. So what about exogenous forces? Just opposite. That means they are external forces like weathering and erosion. So these erosion, they actually form many plains. So the erosion may be formed either by water, glacial activities, and they also form many alluvial or very erosional plains. Alluvial and erosional plains. So they are formed by erosion. Okay. So now we learned about the different forces which actually shape the earth. They are endogenous forces and exogenous forces. So friends, we can see in the next class about all these things.